Welcome back to the Forge Your Own Path Summit. I'm your host, Janine Worth, trauma expert, helping female entrepreneurs to heal so that they can have the spectacular success they desire. My guest today is Lovelda Vincenzi. She's an international MC and the owner and founder of World Class Female Speakers. Hi, Lovelda.
Hi, Janine.
I'm so happy you could join us today.
Oh, you know I like to talk.
So before we get started, why don't you tell us a bit about your own entrepreneurial journey and how you actually got into public speaking?
Oh, goodness gracious. Where do I start? I think anybody who's got, I wish I was one of these people with a really simple entrepreneurial story. Like I woke up one day with this amazing idea and I've always known from the time I was born. I am so not that person. I must have failed at least like 6 or 7 businesses. It was like, I have an idea. No, I don't like that. I have another idea. No, I don't like that. I've always, as a kid, I was one of these kids who loved drama and public speaking, debating, like give me a stage. I was like, bring it on. I thought I was going to be a backing dancer or ballerina or something that meant like I was front and center of stage, right? So I've always enjoyed performing and I've always been quite creative and I've always been quite loud and I've always been a bit bossy. But, when you try and put all of those stuff together into a business, it doesn't quite kind of come together. I've loved business for ages. I used to love playing Monopoly and those kind of business games. And so my entrepreneurial journey in terms of how I came into public speaking, it kind of evolved. I guess the first time it occurred to me that it could be a thing, I was signing up for yet another personal development training. And I was going to sign up just for the business training. And the trainer said, no, you're definitely going to be a speaker, because he had lots of like stage time during his like free 3 days. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever. I didn't really think very much of it, but it was the first time that somebody had said, well, maybe you should be speaking. Kind of forgot it, used speaking to grow previous businesses, but they never quite fit. And I'd keep being asked to moderate. Or I'd take it because I thought it was like, they wouldn't give me the main stage. So I was like, fine, do you have a host? I'll take the host role. But I found anytime I did it, I got amazing feedback. And then people would start finding me without me looking. It was like, I'd wake up one morning and somebody on LinkedIn's like, we found your profile and we'd like you to come and host. And I just thought, but nothing on my freaking profile says I'm a host. So, when the universe is just sending you these little signs, I thought, what would happen if I just told the world, this is me, this is what I do. And I think the first time I really decided, right, I'm going for it, is when a company I've never heard of before approached me from Paris. I was like, wait a minute. So I can fly to, because travel's like my other main thing. I can fly to places to do something that I really love. And the way that event was set up is that they had multiple hosts. And I think it's the first time, because normally I'm the only one, right? So I don't know what everybody else is doing in the industry. I just thought it was simples, right? And it was when I was sat in a room watching other hosts and I walked into one of the panels. And no word of a lie, the guy who was doing, it was like a panel discussion. He's hosting the panel discussion. He sat in his chair and he's like this. And I was like, what? People get away with this shit. So at that point, I thought, right, that's it. I'm telling people about this. I've been booked 3 times now for the same event. They always give me the biggest slots because I can kind of handle stuff under pressure. And it was the first time I realized that the thing that I was sweeping away as, oh, whatever, is actually just a natural gift to me. And I think sometimes in business, we make it a lot more complicated than it needs to be. So that's how I got started. It's a long answer for how I ended up doing what I'm doing now.
But it's a very interesting story. And it's true what you say. Often we don't take our natural gifts seriously because it doesn't feel like work. It just feels so easy.
I mean, it feels like stealing sometimes, right? It's like, you laugh, but it's true. It's kind of like, I didn't really work that hard for this. Like it didn't, because it doesn't have that kind of feeling. You think, let me do something that's really difficult. So when I get paid for it, especially if I'm getting paid well for it, then it feels like work. But yeah, for me, hosting has never really, there's work to it. And I can see now it's not a simple way of speaking. There's lots of components to it, but for me it just kind of feels like, well, why wouldn't you just put this and this and this in that order? Because my brain just works like that. And then you give me a crowd of people and I'm like, let's go.
That's true. I've seen you at live events, and I can definitely confirm that. So, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see female entrepreneurs make when trying to get speaking gigs?
Oh, girl, it's a long list. Let me see if I can narrow it down to I'll narrow it down to 3 of my pet peeves that are backed up by other organizers. So I also run a business called World Class Female Speakers, and I support female speakers on getting on stage. So I have a lot of women around me who are speakers or wanting to get into speaking. And I host my own event once a year called the Female Speakers Conference in London. And so I also book speakers, right? Because we only book female speakers. So I have quite a good perspective in terms of what's going on in the industry. So one of the biggest things I see, well, my top pet peeve and why people struggle to translate into professional speaking is when they're asked why they want to speak, they focus on them. And normally the focus on them goes something like, I really want to tell my story. I want to tell my story because I had a really troubled past and I want other people to learn from what I did, right? Mm-hmm. As an event organizer, especially as a conference organizer, that doesn't help me see what value you're going to bring to me as an organizer. Okay, mm-hmm. So I have a vision for what my event's going to be like, and I have a real clarity on what I want and how I want people to bring something different. And I want to tell my story does not, I'm not looking, unless I'm running an event for stories, that sales pitch is just not going to work for any event organizer, right? So you kind of have to figure out what is the value you're bringing. What is the value behind the story you're telling? Because pitching you want to tell a story is going to keep you in the free gig space. But actually, if you're telling your story because it was trauma and you'll help people see the beauty in those challenges to move beyond it, that's what you speak on. Yes. Not your story. Your story is a mechanism for how you help to convey the power of how you help to get value through. It's kind of like saying, what do you speak on? Well, I speak about how to do stage anchoring. I speak about stage anchoring. It's a tool, right? Storytelling and your story is a tool. It's why you speak about what you speak about. It's what qualifies you to speak on it, but it's not what you speak about. Everything else that's wrapped around that, the lessons and the value, that's the main thing. So the first big pet peeve why people don't get hired is because they're too busy focusing on them rather than putting the perspective of an organizer on, which kind of leads me to the second one, which is a misunderstanding of the industry. So I work with a lot of predominantly female business owners, and they've been pulled into getting on stage, right? Because you're doing this stuff in your business, and so somebody comes, oh, come speak at this event. Next thing you know, it's 20 events in 2 months, and you're kind of going, nobody's paying me, right? There's money in this. I want to be a professional speaker. Now, the speaking industry has many different areas in which you can make money, and being a full-time paid professional speaker is different to being a business owner who speaks, because a business owner who speaks is speaking to grow their business. Yeah. Right? And the way that you position that is very different, and what you're looking for from an audience is different. A professional speaker predominantly speaks to a corporate organization you cannot sell into that is looking for what qualifies you and what value you can bring to that company. And so how you would structure your business if you're purely doing professional speaking, getting paid to speak, versus if you're speaking to grow your business, are very different. It's a different mindset. It's a different mentality. It's a different type of audience. It's just different. You cannot go to a corporate company and decide that you're going to sell your wares. It just does not work like that. If they booked you to come and do something, they've booked you to come and do it. Now, you can have a business and do trainings into corporate organizations, but that's different, right? So so the second pet peeve in terms of why people don't make money in speaking is not having taken the time to understand the speaking industry and then thinking, I'll give it to an agent or I'll give it to a speaker bureau. And the truth is, if you can't market yourself, you're zero proposition to them. So speaker bureaus only make money if they can book you. And if you're not bookable, then why are they going to waste their time? Their job is not to market you. A speaker agent makes money from marketing you, but they will make money from everything you do, like everything. Like think about an actor, everything, every appearance, anytime you show up, they will take like a 20% cut. They manage your life, right?
Yes.
Now, most people I speak to aren't really looking for either of those.
Yes.
So, you know, unless you fully understand what the industry is like, then it's really difficult to position yourself to make money. And then I think the third pet peeve is just having no marketing collateral, like nothing, nothing. It's kind of like saying, oh, I've got a really great band. You go, cool, can I see the band? Oh, they don't have any video. But they're like, 5K. Or you see the video and it's like this patchy video taken by like the girlfriend of one of the band members in the audience, but she was in like the 6th row. So you got the back of heads and it's really fuzzy because it was kind of dark. And, you know, are you going to believe that band is worth 5K? No, no, nobody's going to believe you. So the three, like if I really had to summarize it, the first one is focusing your marketing efforts on you and not your audience. The second is not understanding the industry, and so therefore not knowing who you're pitching to about what. And the third is forgetting you're running a business and therefore having no marketing collateral to back up what it is that you say. There's a reason 5-star hotels do not buy IKEA furniture. That's all I'm saying.
I love that analogy.
They don't though. They go and buy custom, or they invest in that, because when you walk in, you get that 5-star experience. And when you look at the photos and the videos and stuff of the hotel, there's a reason that, their teenage son hasn't done the video footage, because you're just not going to believe that the room is £1,500 a night. You're not. And so it's the same with the speaker. Like if you don't have the right quality of collateral that matches the price point you say you charge, people don't believe your price point. And then it's harder to get that money.
That brings me to an interesting question. Starting price points for people that want to move from doing those freebie talks into their first paid gig. What is a good price to start with if you don't have 5 years of experience, let's say?
So it depends on what value you bring. And it depends on so there's one thing I want to say first. There are multiple points in which you can make money from speaking. Being paid to speak is one of them, but the second one is being able to monetize any speaking engagement. So this is when you can show up to a speaking gig and use it. I call it a funnel filler methodology. You basically use it to get more people into your list, and then you have a really great way of converting those individuals, or to bring people onto a phone call, depending on the nature of your business. But you use it as an opportunity to increase your awareness, and it's very numbers driven. So you're able to construct a talk that takes people on a journey that makes them want to continue a connection and a conversation with you. And so therefore you can relate. I went to this room, there were 20 people in it, 2 people bought a 2K program. It was a 4K gig. I didn't get paid to speak, in terms of I didn't get a speaker fee, but I was paid for that engagement, because had I not been there, those 2K clients wouldn't have shown up, and therefore the 4K wouldn't be in my bank account. So you've got to be clear on where you want the money to come from as a speaker. And so therefore, when I'm evaluating the price of an engagement, I will do engagements at a lower fee for a reason, right? So
a method behind the map.
There's a method behind it. So either I'm doing it because like it's a room full of amazing female entrepreneurs who are business owners who I know are great speakers, and that's going to be an avenue. So I'm going to get lots of people who want to connect in with me. Or I'm doing it because it's from an MC perspective, I'm on stage with Andy King from Fire Festival. Shit, who doesn't want to be able to say, like, from a marketing perspective, all of a sudden my kudos goes up, right? And I can get a photo, and I can get a video testimonial from him. Now I've got Andy King saying Lovelda's amazing on stage. And he happens to be an event organizer himself. So, when you can get these things coming together, then doesn't mean I do the event for free, but those things have a value associated with them as well. So we have to look at the full value of an event rather than simply just looking at the fee. So when you're starting out, I say that because when you're starting out, I wouldn't 100% discount the free engagement. I would use those engagements sensibly to generate revenue, into the business because I've got a really great way of bringing new clients in. I'd use it sensibly to get great quality video footage of me on stage so I can demonstrate that I'm worth the money I want to charge people for it. I would use it to get great quality testimonials, video and written testimonials. I'd use it to get great photographs on me on stage so that I can build a speaker website, so that I can, you know, when I go out to somebody who knows nothing about me and I'm pitching, I can say, watch this video of me on stage last, and they can get a sense of it. So then when I say, you know, it's going to be £250, it's going to be £300, whatever the currency is, it doesn't, you know, it converts and it makes sense.
Yeah.
So it depends on where your speaker fee is, depends on a number of things. One, it's your experience and your value, but secondly, it's who you're pitching it to. Typically, a corporate organization is going to generally have a lot more revenue and be used to paying higher fees because it's an investment in their people, and so they see it very differently. Conference organizers, on the other hand, you're a cost unless you can demonstrate that you can bring people, that you've got a depth of expertise, and then you can name your price, right? But typically speaking, conference organizers have a lower budget than corporate companies. And it depends on the conference organizer's methodology for making money. So some conferences are making money off the fee. So they want great quality speakers and they'll have a limited budget to pay for speakers, right? Other conference organizers are making money at every freaking point there is in the conference. And I mean, they make money. You have to pay to speak. You have to pay to show up. You have to pay to exhibit. Like, everything is where they're making money. And some of them will even take a cut of the sales that you make. So it depends. Yeah. But that's the spectrum. And it doesn't mean that you can't be really successful in each of those different business models, but you need to understand the business model and understand the methodology. So once you get really clear on who you pitch to. So for me, I know roughly what the budget tends to be for the organizers that I work with. And so therefore I'm like, this is good. And I move that up over time, and I can tell really quickly where they, you know, which ones will have money and which ones won't. You know, I don't tend to be the organizer who works with a lot of brand new event organizers unless they built a really great online business and now they're doing an in-person business. And the main reason is they just don't have the money, right? Like, there's so many different moving parts. They simply, like, the thought of paying for a host has never really entered their mind. And if they're paying for a speaker, it'll be one speaker and it'll be the speaker they think is going to bring the names in. And so when you understand what that methodology, like where, what organizers are looking for and who you're pitching at, then your speaker starting fee can be anything from like £75 all the way up to £2,000. It also has to be a number you're congruent with, because it's like selling anything else. Like, if I go and say, I'm going to be £1 million and everything about me is like, girl, please. Girl, please. You think that energy does not translate to the person you're speaking to? So it's got to be a number that makes you a little bit uncomfortable. So it's a stretch and you're growing, but not so much that you feel like a fraud as you're asking for it. So, to give you an example, when I started out, I used to do gigs at around 100. I think my first few were like £150 for the day. Okay. I mean, you couldn't get me for anything like that anymore. Like, unless I'm introducing one person and you're flying me out to Bali and you're putting me up for like a week and a half, maybe. Right? Maybe. It doesn't work like that anymore. Now, to get me out to any gig, I don't do a gig now for less than 1,500, and sometimes that's 1,500 for an evening, not even like the whole day. So, and it depends on the complexity of the event. Like, some people will be paying more than that to have me come out and do stuff, and it depends on where it's located and what else there is for me to get from it. But I didn't start like by saying I'm going to be charging you £2,000 to speak. Like, I just couldn't. My mind just couldn't wrap my head around it, and I didn't have any marketing collateral to back that up. So I didn't believe it. Nobody else had ever paid me anything anywhere near that. And I was creep it up until I'm like, oh, people are paying me this all the time. You know, it's time for the next level. It's time for the next level. I don't have a problem with doing that. But the more you have the marketing collateral to back it up, you know, because ultimately it's what you believe you can charge and what your marketing collateral proves you can charge. And it has to be a combination of both, because you might feel like you're like $2,500 worth of value, or like a 10K speaker. But if I Google you and I can't even find anything that says you're a speaker, I don't believe you, and I'm not paying that. Yeah. Now I feel like you're ripping me off, because it's a seller. They're buying something, right? And if the tables were turned and somebody came to you and said they were a 10K speaker, and you Googled them and you could find nothing that suggested they were a 10K speaker, like they haven't written a multi-selling book, they've not spent loads of time on TV, they don't have a following, like you can find nothing that would justify you putting 10K in this unknown name. Why would you do it?
Yes.
You'd be like, come on out, I'll give you 500 quid.
Yes. No, that makes a lot of sense. So let's talk a bit about the myths and misconceptions that you come across when coaching women on building their speaking careers.
So I think the biggest one I see is often around, I want to get more speaking gigs, so I'm going to have somebody else do it. I need an agent. Give me somebody. I need to find somebody to book my stuff for me, right? That's what I want to do. I just need more speaking gigs, and I need to find somebody to book it for me. The way the industry works, so speaker bureaus, the way that they work, and that's most of the industry, people who will they have websites and they'll book people. The way that it works typically is they take a cut, normally around 20% of any booking. Roughly, somewhere between 10 and 25%, normally about 20%. Sometimes they take it off the booking. Sometimes they just add it as a booking fee. So this is your fee, and they'll charge the client an extra 20% of that fee on top of it. They take the 20%, the rest of it is yours. Okay. They don't work for you because they don't make any money unless you're booked, right? So they do not work for you. They work for the client. So somebody comes to them, and their job is to help them find the best speaker for that gig. Somebody comes to them and says, I'm looking for a leadership speaker. I'm looking for somebody to talk around trauma. I'm looking for somebody with this kind of profile to talk about X. I want them to be female. I want them to be male. I want them to, come from an ethnic background. It doesn't really matter. But they come and they say, look, you've got all these speakers. Tell me, I think I'm interested in these ones. Who would you recommend? Right? So the first thing to know is the speaker bureau's job is not to market you. They're not your marketing agent. So if you're looking for them to book you because you can't book yourself, you're not going to get anywhere with it, because that's not fundamentally, it's not how their business is structured. Their business is structured to find people speaking gigs, therefore meaning you are not their client.
Yes.
Right? Secondly, I don't know anybody who likes to make work hard for themselves. So if you can't market yourself, and they've got this list of different people, and you can't, so if you have never been paid to speak before, they have no interest to you. If you can't market yourself, that you're of no interest. If you don't have the marketing collateral, it's not their job to market you. So it's not their job to write your speaker bio and profile. It's not their job to put your name out there all the time. It's not their job to find the speaking gigs for you. What happens is something comes in, and if they feel it's right, they'll put you forward. And ultimately the client decides. But if you haven't got a different, unique angle, your name is never top of their mind. Right? So you don't get out of marketing by giving it to them. Right? A bureau's ideal client is somebody who goes, knock, knock. Right. So I have like 20 bookings I can't close right now because I'm flying around the world all the time, and I just don't have freaking time. Right? Most of them are rebookings. I genuinely can't. I need somebody to manage this stuff for me. That is their ideal client. They're like, come on in, sit down. Would you like a glass of champagne? So when you understand that, you understand that fundamentally, as a speaker, unless you're a household name, you've got a huge following, your job first is to get really good at booking yourself in order that other people want to book you, which means that you've got to work the angle out. You've got to find the speaking gigs. You've got to get a regular fee, and then they will find you. I've got 2 speaker bureaus. Neither of them did I go and look for. They approached me, both of them.
Okay.
So I'm going to leave it there because I could come up with all kinds of other things. But that would probably be the biggest one, looking for a get out to find gigs. There isn't an easy route. You have to do the work. You just kind of have to do that work in the initial phases, and then the momentum grows from there.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So for the woman watching today, what is one tip that they can implement to improve their chances of getting their first speaking opportunity?
ask for speaking opportunities regularly. Like, it sounds really like it sounds really like basic, right? But if you don't put your name out there and you don't put yourself forward regularly, you're not going to get the gig. It's like, I really want to do a TEDx, but I've never applied for one. Okay. Some people will, eventually fall into a circle where they know a TEDx organizer, and because they're on stages really often, they get approached for it. Most people have to go through the process of applying to speak. So if you are not, my husband likes to say, like, the more you speak, the more you speak. Right? The more you're on stages, the more you're on stages. It's like, if you're on a stage, one gig leads to another gig, leads to another gig, leads to another gig, right? But in order to start that momentum, you first have to put your name out there. I will regularly see gigs and just kind of go, who do I know who knows that organizer? Let me get in touch. Can you put me in touch with this one? Can you recommend me? Like, I am constantly out there. I will, every week I'm reaching out to new organizers. So if you're not in the habit of looking for and approaching, and you don't have to do, initially you don't have to do hundreds in a month. I know one speaker coach is like, if you're not reaching out to 100 organizers a day, he's American. If you're not reaching out to 100 event organizers a day, then you're not serious, right? What I will say is the reverse of that is, if you're reaching out to 100 a day, what happens is you then have to have a robust enough sales process to deal with the questions that come back from that. Yeah. And initially for most people, it's getting clear on, first, let me just get really good at, like, actually just, there are thousands of engagements out there. And most people who tell me they don't know how to find speaking gigs, I say to them, like, have you never seen Google? Like, don't tell, like, it's just lazy to say you don't know how to find speaking engagements. There's Meetup, there's Eventbrite, there's Google. You're in a Facebook group, there's networking events, like, there's places to speak. Yes. The problem isn't finding the gigs. The problem is approaching the gigs consistently such that you get on those stages. And if you're too scared to put your name out there and to even ask, and you haven't built a habit of regularly just 5 a week, 5 a week is 20 a month. You do that regularly enough. It's not difficult. That's one freaking engagement a day. Like, that's like low hanging fruit. Like, one every day, just find one company, go on Eventbrite and have a little Google and then ask somebody. It's not difficult to find speaking engagements. So if you're using the excuse you don't know how to find speaking engagements, it's normally because you don't know how to approach speaking engagements. You don't know how to pitch to an organizer. You don't know what to say. You don't know how to put yourself out there. But initially you just say, look, I'm interested in speaking. Like, who books organizers? Like, it's not a complicated experience. We've just kind of got to break it down. So the biggest tip I can give people who are really serious about getting on stages is to develop a habit daily, weekly, of reaching out to organizers. Because if you come to the end of the month and you haven't had any new speaking gigs, my first question is, how many people did you ask? Yes. It's like coming to the end of the month, I have no clients. Well, how many people did you reach out to find clients? Oh, you didn't even do anything? Like, you didn't even tell people? You like, oh, so you basically been sitting, working on your website and, writing little email messages and thinking about it and shooting videos. Well, you can do all of that stuff, but if you don't put it out there into the world and make a request and let people know that you're available, you ain't gonna get booked.
That's completely true with most things in life. So the next thing I want to know is, who have you enjoyed introducing the most so far in your MC career?
See, I'm hoping they're not watching this, because I don't want people thinking, there was the best. It's like picking your favorite kid, right? Who was the best? They've all been really different. I would probably say the one that stands out the most, where I was like, oh my gosh, was probably the first time I introduced like a celeb. So I got booked to do this gig in Lithuania. And it was like lastminute.com. Like, I think it was about 2 weeks before somebody connected me on Facebook because they'd seen me at another event. See, when you speak, you speak. Connected with the organizer. And this was where it comes back to fees. When I went to negotiate with them, they didn't have anybody. They were like, like, it was a last minute decision to bring an MC in. And so they really didn't have a huge amount of budget left. But they told me Monica Lewinsky was going to be there. So my ears went, So I was willing to negotiate.
I bet.
They told me Monica Lewinsky was going to be there. They told me they had a film crew. They told me there were 4,000 people. They told me it was Lithuania. I love Lithuania. And so I was like, I'm sure we can work something out.
While she's packing her bags.
Right? So when people say, oh, you know, I want lots of money, actually, the kudos of saying I introduced Monica Lewinsky was kind of interesting. I said, it's just going to be an introduction. She will not be taking any questions. No questions. I was like, okay, but you know, it's Monica Lewinsky. It's really cool. Anyhow, it's a 2-day event. Monica's closing the show down on day 2. We're about halfway through day 2. Everything's going great. I've introduced loads of other amazing people during the course of it, but she kind of stands out. And then one of the organizers comes up to me, like the session's going on. She's like right behind my shoulder, and she goes, so there's been a change of plan. Because somebody's on the stage. This is why she's whispering. There's been a change of plan. And I was like, okay. She goes, so Monica's agreed to be interviewed. I was like, okay. She goes, but I know it's really last minute. Should we have somebody else do it? And I was like, no. You think I'm turning this up? Everything in my life has been leading to this moment. So I was like, no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. You know, so there's like a little break in between each of the talks. And so next thing I know, I'm stood outside this door. Monica's the other side. I'm like, we're not going to be like, so it's like me, they get out of the room. It's like me and her in there just having a general chat about like what we're going to be talking about. Because I've done like zero prep. Because they have been drilling into me, this woman is not doing any interviews. She's absolutely not doing any interviews. And then she changes her mind at the 11th hour. I remember coming out of the room before I've even introduced her to stage. And I'm like, oh, did that just happen? Oh, God, just happened. And then if you've ever worked with a Lithuanian audience, they're the sort of audience that like they're the complete opposite of an American audience. So an American audience, you're like, is everybody excited? Yeah! You know, Lithuanians, is everybody excited? Right? So I've had like 2 days of this. The organizers are apologizing for the crowd. I feel like, we're really sorry. We probably should have told you, Lithuanians, like, we're just not, you know, we're not like that. And I was like, by the end of this, y'all are going to be on your feet. So, so it was a highlight partially because I had to work so freaking hard to get this audience on their feet. They gave her a standing ovation to come onto the stage. And then also because like, it was me and Monica Lewinsky on a stage, and it was like the first, I mean, they've come kind of hard and fast ever since that, but it was like the first time I was in that sort of position. It was a little bit surreal. So that was probably, I'd say it's my most memorable to date. And it probably will always stick with me because it was like the first major celebrity, like it was the first time I could say a name and I didn't have to explain it. Oh, that's because they're the CEO of an X, Y, and Z. Or they, you know, the chief executive of marketing director of timing. You know, like I didn't have to add any explanation to it. I could just say it's Monica Lewinsky and people were like, oh, I know that name.
Yes. I'm tempted to ask if she was wearing blue.
What color was she wearing? I don't think she was in blue. I have a photograph of it. I don't believe she was in blue. Can you tell it was a little bit of a blur? I was like, oh my God, it's Monica. She's lovely, by the way. Lovely woman. Amazing. Watch her TEDx talk. It's phenomenal. I still really like it.
I haven't watched it, but I will now.
Yeah, it's a really good TEDx. TED, not TEDx. A really good TED talk.
What is the worst business advice that you've ever received?
The one that comes to, I always go with what comes to mind right now. The one that comes to mind right now was hosts don't make more than 300 pounds. And it was less advice than it was somebody else's limiting. Well, it was a belief, and it was a belief based on their reality because they struggled to make anything more than that. And the reason, even though it wasn't strictly speaking advice per se, it was a gentleman that I'd met up with. It was the first time I found somebody online who moderated, and their whole Twitter profile was all around emceeing. And so I was in that state where I'm like, I just want to do coffee. He was polite enough to kind of come out, or kind enough to come and do coffee with me. Gracious enough to do it. Lovely man. And, you know, so I had a whole ton of questions about just help me learn about the industry. You know, rule number one, like, how does I'm now deciding I'm launching into this. I have no idea what this industry is like. I've come across you. I'd just love to hear more about what the frick the industry is like and what works. And so he was kind of in a mentorship position at the time. And I think it's just something we have to be aware of when we're speaking to anybody. And if I'd have taken it on board, I wouldn't be charging what I'm charging today. And I wouldn't be doing the sorts of engagements I'm doing today. But his reality was gigs are normally about £300 to £400. And there were very few of them that charge a lot more than that. In fact, I had two people tell me this. Both were men. The other one told me the TV gigs paid a lot and the other ones didn't really pay that much. And they're right to an extent, because hosting roles don't pay as much as speaking roles. But the bit where they were wrong is not that those engagements don't exist, right? And I think what we need to remember as business owners is that the minute we let go of our vision, our dream, our ambition, our desire, is the moment we start sacrificing on truly showing up as who we were born to be. And we have to be really, it's not about, I have no hate or malice or anything for these individuals sharing their reality with me. It's useful to understand the landscape. But if we choose to face the landscape as it is, rather than how we wish for it to be, then we will always interact in a way that shuts down our creativity. And I'm going to go spiritual and woo-woo for you for a moment, right? As creative beings, because I do both in my business, right? You don't get to be a business owner and just be up here and really be successful. You kind of have to be a bit delusional and a little bit like, fucking, I don't care what everybody else is charging. This is me, and this is how I'm going to do it, and this is how I want to show up. And I don't care that nobody else has done it before, right? And so we kind of need to have an awareness of what is, but don't interpret it as what will be, right? There's a distinction. Like we don't want to be so delusional that we're so detached from like reality. Like right now, there's no money in the freaking bank account. If that's your reality, that's your reality. In the moment. And that moment is passing like now, right? But if we choose to take that and impose it onto our future, that's when we screw things up.
Yes.
And so I suppose the thinking behind it is we need mentors and we need insights, and those learnings are important. But if within that we let any of those individuals' perspective have us let go of a bigger vision, we might need to adjust the methodology. We might need to, like, what I took from that is I'm gonna have to come up with something different and unique if I'm gonna command these fees. Yeah. Right? You've got handbags and you've got Pradas. You've got shoes and you've got shoes. I'm just not gonna play in this pond, right? So that means that these are not the individuals I want to engage with, because that is their reality and they're gonna hold on to it. Anything they tell me is gonna keep me in this. So I therefore know that these sorts of things deliver that result, and the industry has a lot of people in that space, but I don't choose to be in that space. I want to be in a different space. And so therefore I have to be a little bit different. I have to find examples of individuals I can look up to who aren't doing the same sort of thing. So like one of my biggest inspirations from a speaking perspective is Oprah. And the reason for that is that this is a woman of color, in the entertainment industry, who managed to take a talk show, which frankly at the time, these was like no talk show host was making any serious money. It was like the little thing that you had for Housewives. It wasn't having any major impact on the world or anything like that. She managed to take that platform and turn it into a multi-billion-pound business.
Yes.
Woman of color in a time in which, you know, nobody made any serious money from that sector. It didn't happen. If she were to take that as the reality and let go of the vision of who she is and what impact she wanted to have in the world, we wouldn't have, I mean, she launched businesses. Spanx was nothing until it got on Oprah, right? She literally launched people's careers. She brought influencers to the surface that allowed other people to have a huge impact. And so it's a lot of words to kind of put out there, to remind women that what is most important is that we never, ever, ever lose attachment to what it is we want to create.
Yes.
Even if everything around us today seems to say the complete opposite. It's like the ultimate beautiful delusion.
Yes. Well, that's true. I mean, if I had to think like that, I wouldn't be a trauma expert holding a business summit. How many trauma experts do you know that do that?
Yeah. What are you gonna, nobody like you does that. That's like, it's just like a red flag to pull. I'm like, really?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Because I know the gift that I'm giving people is showing them how unresolved trauma can hold them back in their business without them realizing it. It's something that most people don't even talk about, so.
Only half of business is the business. I've had clients who've really struggled to have impact, not because of the business, but because they won't address the other things that are going on. And I think it's a beautiful point, like working with any mentor or coach, especially people you're investing quite heavily in, you have to be prepared. Like, I wouldn't invest heavily if I couldn't bring everything to the party with the person. Because if you're just going to look at this part of my business, but what's really screwed up is something over here, we've got a problem. And so I need to be able to say, my husband and I we're having issues. And so I'm struggling to freaking focus right now because if I can't figure out a way to deal with that, the business, that energy eventually bleeds into the business. And then the whole thing kind of, falls apart. Like, you can't hide in your business forever. It just, eventually it's going to implode.
Yes. No, that's great. So let's talk a bit about your morning routine. How do you set yourself up for a successful day?
My morning routine moves around a little bit, but fundamentally, I like to take the morning to deal with my mental state. And so when I was working full time, I used to I call it slam into the day, basically get up, shit, I'm late. From the moment I got out of bed to the moment I went to sleep, it was go, 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 work, 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 work. As an entrepreneur, you're like, what's going on in here has such a huge impact on what's happening outside. And there are so many different things that you could be doing at any given time that you can start down on one path and then get hit by something. Then now you convince yourself you're going in this direction or that direction. You don't stay the course, right? So I could start down one path and somebody tells me you don't make more than 300 pounds as an MC. And now I decide I'm going to completely change how I show up as an MC in order to match that, rather than go back to what it is I would love to do. And so I use the mornings to always kind of reset and be really intentional, especially if something's not going right. Like, especially if I'm like, frick, I'm mid-launch and it's not working, or what the heck, how come this client just won't sign the frigging contract, and why are the bios not in right now, and I've got like 1,500 things to do and this is the last thing that I need. Because ultimately, if I can stay grounded in myself and then better connected to universal energy, I'm back in the woo space. And anytime I've done that, what's happened, I used to do it at work as well, except I slammed into my day and then I'd do it later. But what would happen, or I do it when I knew I was going to have a really stressful day. It's like, there's so much to do and my logical mind cannot comprehend how the heck this stuff would fall into place. And in those instances, what would tend to happen is the person I needed to, like the company I needed to call that I knew was going to have me on hold for half an hour, would call me. So all the stuff would get done, but it would get done differently. The meeting I really didn't want to go to because it was going to take 2 hours and it was going to take me an hour to get there and an hour to get home, would cancel and fill up my day, right? So I never had to adjust. I didn't have to work it out and make the day meet me. I would just say, look, this is what I'm choosing, and I'm just going to be open to it turning out. And it would always happen. I'd be like, shit, I really need to call. And they would call me. Like, every time without fail, I really need to call these people. Like, it's been on my list for a while and I get caught up in something, but I set the intention at the beginning of the day and they would call me. So my morning tends to be, for me, I tend to take at least an hour and a half to 2 hours in the morning just for me. Sometimes it's meditating, sometimes it's a long walk, listening to an audiobook, sometimes it's journaling, sometimes I'm just, sitting and doing like a brain dump. Sometimes I'm evaluating something, so I'm just having a conversation with myself, like why am I struggling with this negotiating? What is it and I'm not seeing? It might be journaling questions, but it tends to be, I use the morning for me to go inwards and reconnect with who I'm becoming, so that it's easier for me to stay in that space. So it just makes my growth, like, it's why things happen for me quicker, because I take more intentional time in the morning to choose it and go back to a space of trust where I'm like, okay, I don't know. Right? Like, it's okay that I don't know. I don't need to have all of the answers. And if I came up with a plan, it's probably not going to work anyway. So maybe I just go with what feels really obvious right now, like one little step at a time, because normally it's not until you get to the final destination you can look back and go, oh, that's why this happened and that happened and this happened and that happened. I just kind of go, it feels like fun. It feels nice. I'd love to do it. Let's see what happens from it. I'll, make an offer or whatever. So my morning is very much about me. So I don't even speak to my husband then. He gets like a morning kiss and then I'm like, leave me alone. Like, there's no conversation for like, okay, now I'm back.
No, that's great. So you have a gift for our audience. Please tell us a bit about that.
So is this a gift for everybody?
Yes.
So what I said is, when you speak more. I have a methodology I eventually deconstructed that I used myself, that's allowed me to build my speaking business quite quickly. So to give you an idea, I really started speaking seriously about 18 months ago. And since then, I've introduced Monica Lewinsky and interviewed her. I've introduced Kunal Nair, who is the guy, the Indian guy in the Big Bang Theory, him. Andy King, who is the guy who was in the Fire Festival documentary on Netflix. Loads of CEOs. I've spoken here and abroad. I get rebooked all the time. I have it's probably about 80 testimonials at the moment on LinkedIn, a load of video testimonials, show reels. I mean, I even have a video testimonial from Andy King. So it's what I did to build my business to get all of that stuff. So I look at how I think before an event. Like, what do I set up before I even turn up to an event that guarantees me great quality footage, testimonials, all the marketing collateral? And then how do I then use that afterwards to help make it easier to get the next event? So anytime I've done a speaking engagement, I've looked to extract as much as possible out of it. And then I've taken all of that stuff eventually and put it into a blueprint I call the Profitable Speaker Marketing Blueprint. It's really comprehensive. It'll give you loads of ideas and techniques. You don't have to implement all of them straight away, but implement a handful of them. You'll be getting testimonials like this. It'll be easier for you to market yourself to get more speaking engagements. It's just being really strategic about speaking gigs. That is yours.
That sounds fabulous. So I encourage all of you to go and download that. And then you've got a special bonus for those that actually buy the summit. Please tell us about that.
I want to do a drum roll for the bonus. I'm like, so I speak a lot about looking your value so that your fee is never questioned. So when you're getting ready to really step up your speaking engagements and find more of the right quality gigs that are going to pay you the 4 and 5 figure fee, it's about making sure that you look the part. So it's, how do you articulate your message? How do you find who the right organizer profile is? Being able to articulate that successfully on your website, on your creating show reels, on your LinkedIn, and then effectively create a sensible marketing campaign. I ran a 3-day boot camp. It's worth $497. And it's 3 days self-study. So you just download it and it's got all of the stuff in it. I talk you through how to create a bio in detail. There's loads of extra bonuses in it as well. The Profitable Speaker Blueprint is included in that. How to create a speaker bio is included in that. And there's something else. Oh, there's a questionnaire that will let you work out how your marketing is working at the moment so you can identify gaps. That is yours for free.
Thank you so much. That sounds wonderful. So you also have a Facebook group. Tell us a bit about that and what kind of content people that join will find in there.
So the Facebook group's called World Class Female Speakers. So it's for women, predominantly female business owners ready to kind of grow their business, getting on stage. It's also for speakers at the moment who need better marketing, like just kind of like I'm speaking and I want to scale it and ramp it up. So the content is very much around the business of speaking. The people I work with are already great speakers. It's not that I can't teach how to be great on stage and refinements and those sorts of things. I do that to an extent with my clients, but that's not why people come to me. They come to me because they're struggling to monetize that speaking. They've got sick of the free engagements. They're getting sick of the 3-figure engagements. They want consistent 4-figure or 5-figure engagements. They want to be able to take their own events and translate those into higher levels of revenue. So that's what I speak about. I talk about how to create a speaking business, whether you're bolting the speaking business onto your current business so that you can grow your business, or whether you're launching or expanding an existing speaking business at the moment and really wanting to put the structure in there to scale. All about the background that actually has you have a business around speaking, because I think in my experience, a lot of women are speaking a lot, but they ain't running it as a business. They're running it as a hobby and then getting annoyed they're not getting paid. So I help women kind of move that along. It's like, no, let's put the business hats on and really start to get quite strategic and structured about the conversations that we're having, so that when people come to us, we're having a conversation the same way you would when you're having a coaching client. Like, you're not kind of faffing around and going around in circles, but you understand the industry, you understand who you speak to, you understand what value it is that you bring, and you know how to articulate that the same way that you know how to articulate it for a client that you're bringing in for coaching or mentoring or training or whatever your primary business is.
No, that sounds fabulous. So if you had to recommend a book that, in your opinion, all female entrepreneurs should read, what would that be?
This is a really, really hard one for me. My books tend to go in themes. I had to think about this, because I'm like, which book? A while back, the book that I was recommending a lot was a book called The One Thing, which really helps with focus. Love that book. It's a brilliant book. And I still recommend it. I think the other thing we as female entrepreneurs also need is books that help us stay grounded as us, right? So I think there's always 2 types of business owners. There's the business owner that does a lot of stuff through doing, and then there's a business owner that can kind of get too far in the extreme of energy work. And I think we need a little bit of both. So I think if you're the sort of business owner who tends to be drawn to books like The One Thing, tell me what to do, you probably are too far in one extreme, and it's worth going to books like, what was the book I read recently? Oh, Janine, you'll know it. It's about the power of the experiment. What experiment?
Experiment.
Sorry?
Is it the surrender experiment?
The surrender experiment. That's for you. So if you're on that extreme of doing lots of stuff and not getting anything done, the surrender experiment is for you. Read that, because it will help you to balance the 2, because we're not always going to know exactly why we're doing what we're doing.
Yes.
So I'd strongly recommend that book. I think if you're at the other extreme where you're doing a lot of energy stuff and you've got all these big ideas and lots of things to do, but you don't, like, you're getting overwhelmed, then The One Thing is a really excellent book. And it really helps you get focused on the prioritization of what it is that you're doing, because you don't need, like, 20% gets you 80% of the results type thing. And I loved that book in terms of, like, here's a real strategy to take this, like, big thinking where you're sitting going, the universe is going to provide me all of this stuff. Like, girl, we need to do stuff too. And it's not, I say to ladies that I work with, look, the really successful, because there's this myth that the person that's really successful is the person who does stuff. And that's not true. The really successful person tends to be the more courageous person, right? Because there's people that do a lot of stuff, but the problem is they're doing the wrong stuff or doing the stuff in the wrong order, right? Because if you're if you're scared, if you're really ready to build a speaking business, it's going to require you to do things today that are really uncomfortable to you, to put yourself out in the world in a way that's really different to how you've been doing it so far. And you're not going to know what those things are until you get asked to do them. So there's a reason why I have clients and I will tell them to do something and they won't do it. Why? Because that thing, the one thing that's going to have the biggest shift for them to allow them to really start to embody and get the clients that they want is the thing that terrifies them the most. I had one client, it took, I think we had 3 months of, babe, you just need to state your fee. 3 months. Right? So it's not, and she did lots of stuff, doing. But the one thing she wouldn't do was state her fee. So it's not about what you do. Like if you're the sort of person that's done a lot of stuff and you're not getting action, it's because the stuff you need to do is the stuff that you need to do that will have the most impact is the stuff you're avoiding because there's something else in the way. And that's when you need to work with somebody, right? Because what happens is you read a self-study course. We've done it. We read a self-study course. It tells us all the things to do. And then we cherry pick the stuff that feels easy.
Yes.
And we do all of that stuff and it doesn't really get the results. But there was one thing in there they said that we just, that's the thing you should have done.
Yes.
And then you go, doesn't work. Doesn't work.
Yes. No.
So yeah, the one thing. Sorry, I'm giving the longest answers. It's the questions, Janine. They're just like forgetting me.
I like the meat and potatoes kind of question. So do you have any exciting projects or events coming up that people watching need to know about?
Always exciting projects, always events. So the biggest event to speak of is the Female Speakers Conference. You can find details of it on femalespeakersglobal.com. It's a conference that I co-host in the UK. It's on the 11th of October. If you message me, I'll give you a special link. I'll give you 20% off the ticket if you send me like a little message. That conference is on the 11th of October and we're bringing in speakers to talk around the business of speaking. So we have a panel with speaker bookers where you really get to find out what the heck it is that they're looking for. Like, 3 speaker bookers. Between them, they've booked thousands of speakers over the years and really well-known household names as well. So we've got a panel interview that we're doing with those guys. We'll be talking about the speaking industry. We'll be talking Elena Herdrikoff, who you've got, who's part of the summit. She'll be there teaching you how to scale your speaking gigs and get onto more stages and go viral with TEDx and find TEDx talks and that sort of stuff. We'll be looking at branding and selling and marketing. Like, it's an incredible event. So yeah, you can come along to that. If you've been listening and you're kind of like, oh, Lovelda, what other opportunities are there to work with you? I work with a handful of clients one-to-one or in larger programs. Just get in touch. I will tell you the details of how they work. So I work on show reels and basically anything that's going to help you get on stages. But I'm quite holistic, as you might have gathered. So I'm going to get into all of your life.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for all the tips and tricks that you've shared with us today. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing these valuable nuggets with our audience.
I wouldn't have missed it for the world. You know me, I can't wait to get on the stage and be like, come on, ladies. Talking is the thing we do. We cannot let the men beat us at this. We can't.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. So do stay tuned, because next up is Elena Herdrikoff, who's going to talk about how to get onto a TEDx stage. So until then, keep well. Bye.